Welcome to Nothing is Rushing. You're safe to slow down here. This video was not made to be fast. Nothing here's in a hurry. It's simply the slow rhythm of an ordinary day in the past. If you stay awake while listening, that's fine. If you fall asleep, that's exactly how it's meant to be. If you'd like to find this video again, subscribing to the channel and leaving a small like is enough. And if you do nothing right now, that's perfectly fine too. Let the weight of your shoulders slowly move downward. Let your jaw soften. Let your tongue rest away from the roof of your mouth. Let your neck and the back of your head become gentle. Your arms, your hands, your fingers. There's nothing you need to hold on to. Let your breathing find its own rhythm, and let your body slowly move into rest. Tonight you will hear a gentle diary from an Ottoman palace, told through the small routines of a young attendant whose days are made of order, repetition, and calm. I wake before the first clear light reaches the high windows. The room is still dim, but the dimness is kind. It hides sharp edges and makes everything feel softer than it will later. I stay lying down for a moment, listening to the simplest sounds. My own breath, the faint settling of wood, and a distant corridor that seems to hold its silence like a held note. When I sit up, I do it slowly so the bedding does not rustle. My hand smooths the cover in a straight line, then again, until the surface looks settled. I fold the blanket in measured steps. One fold, then a second, corners aligned to corners. I do not chase perfection. I aim for quiet. On the low table beside me, my notebook waits. I open it gently, as if the paper itself could be startled. At the top of the page, I write 3 simple anchors that help me move through the day without rushing. Order, practice, rest. I do not write a time beside them. Time can feel loud when it is written down. Sequence is kinder than clocks, so I follow sequence instead. Wash, braid, check, step out. The floor is cool under my feet, and the coolness wakes me without making me tense. I cross the room in short steps and lift the small ewer with both hands. I pour water into a bowl in a thin, careful stream. Water can be noisy when it is careless, so I keep the mouth of the ewer close to the bowl. The sound stays small. I wash my hands first, then press damp cloth to my face. Forehead, cheeks, jaw, each touch slow enough that it finishes before the next begins. I dry by pressing, not rubbing. Pressing feels calmer, as if I'm closing a book rather than scrubbing a stain. Then I comb my hair. The comb travels from the ends upward, and when it meets a knot, I pause and loosen it with patient fingers. I gather the hair back and braid it loosely. A braid that is too tight makes the whole day feel tight, so I keep the tension gentle and even. Before leaving, I check my small tools in the same order every morning. 1 folded cloth, 1 towel, my needle case, my notebook, a small tie for repairs. I touch each item lightly, only to confirm it is there. Confirmation is soothing. Near the lamp, a dish holds plain soap and a tiny scent stone. I do not breathe it deeply. Strong sensation wakes strong attention. I lift the lid, notice the faint, clean smell, and close it again. I add a brief line in my notebook. Bedding folded, hands and face refreshed, hair secured, tools checked. The pencil makes a soft scrape that feels like calm work being recorded. At the door, I pause. The corridor has a different kind of silence, longer, thinner, more watchful. I open the door close to the hinge, so it does not creak. Cool air touches my face, and I step out with an even rhythm, letting my feet move like a quiet metronome. Today will be one full day inside the palace, from first light to sleep, told through small tasks and gentle discipline. And my first duty begins where all duty begins, with a tray prepared in steady hands. The service room is dim and orderly, and I like it for that reason. Every object has a place that rarely changes, which means my mind does not need to search. Searching pulls the thoughts upward. Here, I can stay low and calm. I set my notebook on the table, open it to a blank space, and begin the tray routine. First comes the cloth lining. I choose a clean square fabric and shake it once, only once, so it settles without fluttering. I lay it flat and press the corners with my fingertips. A flat cloth makes everything else behave. Next, the cups. I count them quietly. 1, 2, 3. I check each rim with my thumb for chips, then rinse each cup with warm water and dry it carefully. A wet cup leaves rings. Rings invite fuss. I avoid fuss. The spoons follow. I lift each spoon by the handle and place it down without a clink. One spoon, then the next, then the third. After that, I set a small dish for sugar and another dish that holds something plain, so the tray feels complete without being extravagant. While the water warms, I straighten the shelves. I align bowls so their edges match. I rotate a jar so its label faces forward. I slide a stack of napkins into a clean line. These small corrections are not required, but they feel like smoothing wrinkles from a mind. When the kettle is ready, steam rises in a quiet ribbon. I pour with patience, stopping at the same level in each cup as if an invisible line guides me. I stir once, only once, so the spoon does not announce itself. I step back and look at the tray from above, then from the side. Cloth flat, cups aligned, handles clean, dishes centered. This last check is not about fear of error. It is about calm assurance. I lift the tray with both hands. The weight grounds me. I keep my elbows near my sides so the tray stays level, and I walk with a breath pattern that matches my steps. 3 steps in, 3 steps out. The pattern keeps my shoulders loose. At the door of the receiving room, I pause and knock softly. Waiting is part of the routine, not wasted time. When I am permitted to enter, I move slowly, place the tray down without trembling the cups, and set each item in the order I always use. Cup, spoon, napkin, dish. Then I step back, eyes lowered, hands relaxed at my sides. I hold still long enough for the room to settle around the arrangement. The goal is to leave the space calmer than I found it. When I return with the empty tray, I wash and dry it, fold the lining cloth, and put everything back in place. In my notebook, I write a small record. Service completed, tray returned, shelves aligned. Before I leave the service room, I reset it as if it will be inspected in silence. I rinse the kettle and dry its base so no damp ring remains on the shelf. I fold the spare cloths into the same size squares, stacking them with edges matched. I also check the tray handles for any moisture or residue, wiping them until they feel dry and clean. Dry handles prevent slipping later. Then I take a moment to stand still and notice the steadiness in my hands. The steadiness is not pride. It is simply evidence that calm practice works. The palace runs on many duties, but most of them share one secret. They become easier when the body moves slowly and the mind stays quiet. And now, with the tray finished, I follow the next sequence, through corridors and doorways, toward the morning lessons. The lesson room is brighter than the service room, yet still calm. Light settles on the table in an even way, as if it too has learned restraint. Paper waits in a neat stack. A small pot of ink sits close to the edge. A blotting cloth lies folded like a promise. I sit with my back straight, not stiff, and place both feet flat on the floor. The first instruction is always posture. Posture steadies the hand. A steady hand steadies the mind. I open the ink carefully and dip the pen slowly. I touch the tip to the blotting cloth once, so the first mark will not be too heavy. Then, I begin with simple letters, copied from a clean example line. Each character is made with patience. A curve, then a pause, a line, then a pause. Writing is a quiet kind of walking. When the first line is complete, I read it silently, then write it again beneath, aiming for equal spacing. Repetition is the true teacher here. It does not scold, it simply returns, again and again, until the hand learns calm. After letters, I practice numbers. Numbers are soothing because they do not pretend to be anything else. I write 1 through 12 with the same space between each, then write them again in reverse, letting the descent feel like walking down a gentle stair. When my fingers tire, I place the pen down and stretch my hand. I roll my shoulders once, then return to the page. The lesson is not speed. The lesson is steadiness. There's also practice in stillness. I stand and place my hands in the resting position. I take one step, then another, heel to toe, with a small pause between movements. The slow walk teaches control without force. Even turning is practiced. I pivot without suddenness and return along the same path. The teacher's voice is low and distant, like a sound behind a curtain. The corrections are small. Soften the shoulders, lower the chin, relax the hands. Nothing sharp, nothing urgent. At the table again, I copy a simple schedule in clear words. Morning duty, midday errands, afternoon work, evening rest. Ordinary words feel safe. They do not ask for emotion, only attention. Before leaving, I clean the pen tip with a cloth so it will not dry stiff, and I close the ink pot firmly but gently. I stack the papers with a soft tap until the corners meet. Then I write a tiny note to myself. Lighter touch, wider spacing. The lesson ends not with applause, but with quiet completion. I close my notebook and stand, letting my breathing stay slow. The palace has given me a calm task, and I have met it calmly. After a set of lines is finished, I lift the paper slightly and check it against the light. Heavy ink can bleed, and bleeding makes the page look restless. If a mark is too dark, I adjust the next strokes to be lighter, letting the hand learn control through tiny changes. I practice a short exercise in spacing. I write a row of small dots, each dot equally distant from the next. Then a row of short lines, then a row of small curves. It seems pointless, but it teaches the hand to move without urgency and to stop exactly where it should. Before leaving, I wipe the table edge and make sure no stray ink drop remains. Ink stains invite later attention, and later attention can become frustration. I prefer to finish a task fully, so it can rest. Now the day turns toward movement again. Small errands that pass through long corridors where the air changes near courtyards, and where each step must remain careful. Midday brings more activity to the palace, but the activity is controlled, like a river guided by stone. I am given a simple errand: carry a folded bundle of cloth to a room near the courtyard, and return with an empty basket. I fold the bundle once more so it holds its shape. Loose corners invite snags. Snags invite noise. I keep the edges even and hold the cloth close to my chest. Then, I step into the corridor with measured steps. The palace corridors are long, and the longness invites the mind to wander. To prevent wandering, I choose small anchors. I notice the pattern of tiles beneath my feet. I follow the line where wall meets floor. I keep my gaze soft, not searching, not staring. As I pass a window, the air changes. It smells faintly of water and clean stone. The courtyard itself is bright, but I do not linger. Lingering invites thought, and thought can become wakeful. I allow the fresh air to touch my face, then continue. Doors have different voices. Some close like a sigh, others click sharply. When I meet a door that tends to click, I hold it near the latch and guide it shut with my palm so the sound stays small. When I reach the assigned room, I place the cloth bundle where it belongs and smooth the top once. I pick up the empty basket from the corner and check that it is balanced in my hand. Then, I return the way I came. On the return walk, I carry a small message slip to a shelf where notes are stored. I do not read it. I keep it flat between my fingers and place it in the correct slot, making sure it sits visible. Hidden papers create searching. Searching creates haste. Haste makes noise. Back near the service area, I set the basket down neatly and align it with the wall so it does not interrupt the passage. I take a slow breath, inhale gentle, exhale longer, letting the body soften without becoming slack. To keep the mind steady, I count landmarks instead of time. One window, one corner, one doorway, one quiet turn. Landmarks guide without rushing. Before moving on, I refill a water jug carefully. I keep the jug close to the basin so the stream stays thin. I wipe the outside dry so no drops trail onto the floor. Then I return it to its shelf with the handle facing outward for easy lifting. In my notebook, I write, bundle delivered, basket returned, note placed, water vessel refilled. The list is short, but it tells me the day is still orderly. On one stretch of corridor, the tiles become smoother, and my steps sound slightly different. To keep the sound even, I shorten my stride. Shorter strides reduce echo, and reducing echo keeps the corridor calm. I pass a wall niche holding a small decorative bowl. I do not touch it, but I check that it sits centered and stable, because anything unstable can fall later and create a sudden crash. I adjust nothing unless needed. Sometimes the calmest action is simply confirming that calm already exists. Now, the next duty calls for a different kind of calm. One built from shelves, labels, and folded linens, where the work is repetitive enough to let the mind drift safely. The pantry is not a place of drama. It is a place of counting, confirming, and returning everything to its proper position. The air smells faintly of dried herbs, soap, and clean cloth. I like it because it rewards patience. I begin with the jars. I do not open them unless needed. Instead, I read labels and confirm their places. Left to right, shelf by shelf. A label turned sideways feels restless, so I rotate jars until every name faces forward. Facing forward means no one must search later. I count jars in quiet sets and record the totals with small marks in my notebook. A mark for each jar, then a line to finish the group. The marks look tidy, and tidy marks make a tidy mind. Next, I check the baskets beneath. Some hold twine, paper, spare ties, and small cloths for wiping. I lift the top layer, confirm the contents, and return it without scattering anything. I align the basket so its edge sits square with the shelf. Then I move to the linen stacks. Linen speaks silently in this place. A clean squared stack says the day is under control. A careless stack suggests hurried hands. I choose steadiness. I take one cloth from the top and unfold it on the table. I run my hand along the seam to feel for loose threads. If I find one, I do not panic. I take my needle case and make a small repair. One stitch, then another, then a final stitch to secure the thread. Quiet repairs prevent louder problems later. After the repair, I fold the cloth again. Halves, then thirds, corners aligned. I press the final fold with my palm so it lies flat. Then I return it to the stack, with the same side facing outward, keeping the stack uniform. I check towels, too. Towels are thicker, but they still prefer discipline. I square them, tap the edges into line, and place them back. Finally, I note what is low and what is sufficient. Tea, sugar, plain biscuits, soap, and lamp oil. I keep the notes brief. The pantry does not require emotion, only attention. I press lids gently to confirm they are seated. A loose lid invites moisture. Moisture invites spoilage. I reseat any lid that shifts and wipe the rim. In the ledger, I add a simple rotation reminder. What is used first stays forward. What is newer stays behind. The rule is plain, but it prevents confusion, and preventing confusion is a kind of mercy. Before leaving, I scan the shelves once more. Labels forward, stacks squared, basket handles visible, nothing hidden, everything ready. In my notebook, jars confirmed, linens refolded, minor repair made, supplies noted. Then I close the book and let my shoulders drop. Under the linen shelves, there's a small section for cleaning supplies. I check the soap pieces and make sure they are dry and stacked so air can move between them. Soap stored damp becomes soft and messy. Messy soap feels unpleasant in the hand and encourages hurried washing. I sort twine into a tight coil and secure it with a simple wrap so it will not unravel. Unraveled twine looks like disorder, and disorder invites extra handling. Extra handling wakes the fingers, and wakeful fingers can make the mind busy. At the end of the pantry check, I close the door gently and stand for a moment outside it, letting the mind register that this room is complete. Completion is a quiet relief. With the pantry calm, the day can move into longer hand-focused work, needle and thread, where time passes in quiet stitches and gentle counting. The textile room smells of clean fiber and faint soap, and the light there is gentle, filtered through fabric curtains. It is a room designed for hands that work slowly. I am assigned a corner table and a small set of tools, a hoop, a needle case, thread cards, and a folded bundle of cloth that needs mending. Before I begin, I prepare the surface. I wipe the table once, then place a cloth down to keep the fabric from catching on rough wood. I set the hoop to the left, the needle case above it, and the thread cards to the right. I like a clear layout. A clear layout keeps the mind clear. I open the needle case and choose a needle that feels right, thin enough for fine cloth, sturdy enough not to bend. I set it down on the cloth so it will not roll. Then I sort threads in a simple sequence, from lightest to darkest, not for beauty, but for order. I do not spread them widely. Wide spreading creates a feeling of clutter. Instead, I place each card in a neat row, edges aligned. I begin by checking the cloth bundle. I unfold it carefully and smooth it with my palm, pressing air out of the folds. I look for the repair points. A loose seam here, a small tear there, a thin edge that needs reinforcement. I do not allow my eyes to jump around. I choose one repair and start with that. One task at a time is the easiest way to stay calm. Threading the needle is a small ceremony. I trim the end of the thread so it is clean, then wet it slightly between my fingers so it stays together. I guide it through the eye without forcing. If it misses, I do not tighten my jaw. I try again. The palace teaches patience through tiny movements like this. When the thread is through, I pull a short tail and smooth it along the length, letting it lie straight. A twisted thread invites knots. Knots invite irritation. I avoid both by moving slowly. Before the first stitch, I take one soft breath and let my shoulders loosen. Then, I bring the needle up through the fabric and begin. The first stitch is small and quiet, like the first step on a long walk. I keep the distance between stitches consistent and the tension gentle. Tight stitches pucker the cloth. Loose stitches fail to hold. I aim for the middle. I count stitches in groups of 5. 5 stitches, then a pause. 5 more, then a pause again. The counting slows me down in a good way. It turns the work into a rhythm that does not require excitement to continue. If the thread begins to twist, I stop. I lift the cloth slightly and let the needle hang, so the thread can unwind itself. I do not pull. Pulling makes tangles worse. When the thread lies straight, I continue. As the seam repairs, the cloth looks calmer. The tear edges meet. The loose place becomes stable. This kind of progress is quiet progress, steady, invisible from a distance, but satisfying when you look closely. When I reach the end of a section, I tie off the thread on the underside with a small knot, then secure it with a second pass. I trim the tail neatly. Clean endings prevent future catching. I fold the repaired section gently and set it aside. There are more repairs waiting, but I do not rush into them. I reset my tools first. Needle returns to the cloth. thread cards stay aligned, hoop remains in place. This is how the palace asks me to work. Not fast, not dramatic, simply steady. And with the first seam secured, I continue into the next repair, letting the afternoon stretch out through the soft counting of stitches. Once the hands find a rhythm, the mind follows. In the textile room, time feels different. It does not arrive in loud blocks. It passes in small repetitions. Needle up, needle down, thread pulled through, stitch set, breath released. I choose the next repair point and smooth the cloth flat again. I place a finger near the edge of the tear to hold it steady. Then I begin a line of tiny stitches, each one close enough to support the next. To keep the pace gentle, I use a simple cycle. 10 stitches, then a short pause where I smooth the fabric. 10 stitches again, then a pause where I relax my fingers. A longer pause after 3 cycles, where I look up at the far shelf and blink slowly to rest my eyes. The pauses are not delays, they are part of the work. Sometimes the thread tangles without warning. When it happens, I stop immediately, as if someone has raised a hand for silence. I lift the needle and run the thread lightly between my fingers, finding where it twists. I untwist it with careful movements, patient enough that the thread becomes calm again. Then, I return to the cloth as if nothing happened. If a stitch lands unevenly, I do not argue with it. I remove it gently by reversing the needle through the same hole. I do not pull hard, I do not tighten my breath. I simply correct it and continue. Correction is a quiet skill. When the cloth requires reinforcement, I add a second row of stitches. This is slower, but slower is safe. I keep the second row parallel to the first, like 2 calm lines on a page. Parallel lines feel stable. They also feel soothing to look at. I notice how the body changes during this work. The shoulders drop, the jaw loosens, the breath becomes shallower but steadier. The hands move without urgency. It is as if the needlework gently persuades the whole body to become quiet. A small bell sound from far away reminds me that the palace continues beyond this room. I do not follow the sound with my thoughts. I keep my attention on the thread and the feel of cloth under my fingertips. Attention is a choice, and I choose the simplest object in front of me. When a section is finished, I tie off the thread and press the seam flat with my palm. Then I fold the cloth, not tightly but neatly, and place it with the other completed pieces. Completed pieces make a small stack of assurance. If there is a moment between repairs, I organize the thread cards again. I align their edges and check that no thread has unwound too far. A loose end can catch and make a knot. Preventing knots is easier than undoing them. To keep the mind from growing bright, I avoid imagining the future. I do not think of tomorrow's duties or distant worries. I keep the time small and near. This stitch, this breath, this quiet line. Eventually, I reach a natural stopping point. The repairs that were urgent are finished, and the remaining tasks can wait. I secure the last thread and lay the needle down carefully. I do not leave the needle hidden in fabric. Hidden needles create panic later, and panic does not belong in this kind of work. I wrap the repaired cloth in a thin cover and tie it with a soft ribbon. The knot is gentle, easy to undo. Then, I label it in my notebook. Which shelf, which bundle, which date. With the mending prepared for storage, the rhythm of the afternoon continues, moving from stitches to another form of calm discipline, posture, etiquette, and the practiced art of moving quietly through busy rooms. After needlework, my hands feel steady, and steadiness is useful for the next lesson. I am called to a small practice room where attendants refine posture and movement. These lessons are not dramatic. They are made of tiny corrections that become habits. I begin by standing with my feet placed evenly, not wide, not narrow. I keep my knees soft, shoulders lowered, chin level. My hands rest calmly, fingers relaxed, not gripping. The instructor does not raise their voice. Instructions here are quiet, because quiet instruction produces quiet movement. Today's practice is carrying. I lift a small tray, empty at first, holding it level with both hands. I walk forward in short steps and keep my elbows close to my sides. The goal is to look calm while moving, as if nothing is difficult. We practice turns as well. I approach a marked point on the floor and pivot without suddenness, keeping the tray level. A turn done too quickly makes the tray wobble. A wobble makes the mind tense. I aim for a turn that feels like a slow page being turned. After several passes, a small weight is added to the tray, a cup half filled with water. Water is a strict teacher. It shows every mistake. I walk again, focusing on a steady breath and the softness of my shoulders. My eyes remain gentle, not fixed, not searching. Next, we practice the quiet voice. I repeat short, respectful phrases in a low tone without sharp consonants. The words are simple: acknowledgement, thanks, permission. The lesson is not what the words mean. The lesson is how the mouth shapes them without waking the mind. Then comes the stillness drill. I stand with hands at rest and hold my body quiet for a count, not rigid, only steady. Stillness in the palace is useful because it allows others to pass without disturbance. It also teaches the nervous system that it is safe to be calm. When the practice ends, I return the tray to its place and align it with the edge of the shelf. I smooth the cloth beneath it. Small order continues even in the practice room. In my notebook, I record, carrying practiced, turns softened, voice kept low, stillness held. The notes are plain, but they help me keep consistency. Between drills, we practice how to pause. A pause is not a freeze. It is a controlled stillness that keeps the body relaxed. I stand and let my weight settle evenly through both feet. I soften the fingers rather than curling them tight. I keep the eyes lowered in a gentle way that does not look anxious. We also practice the quiet hand positions used when waiting. Hands can reveal impatience when they fidget. I place one hand lightly over the other and let the thumbs rest without rubbing. The instructor reminds us that calm hands make calm shoulders, and calm shoulders make calm steps. Before leaving, I wipe the practice tray with a cloth, even though it is clean. The wiping is part of ending the exercise. I fold the cloth into a small square, return it to its shelf, and align the shelf items so the room looks untouched. This is the palace's preference. Work completed. Evidence minimal. Order intact. As I leave, the air in the corridors has changed again. Afternoon light is warmer, and the palace feels fuller. With fuller rooms come more chances for small duties, setting, clearing, aligning, and soon there will be a quiet meal routine, where even eating is done with gentle restraint. The meal routine in the palace is not loud. It is structured, measured, and meant to appear effortless. My part in it is small. Help prepare a simple setting, carry items to a side table, and then eat my own plain portion afterward. I begin with the table linens. I lay a cloth down and smooth it from the center outward, pressing air toward the edges. A wrinkle in the center draws the eye. I remove it with steady palms. Then I align the cloth with the table's corners, so the drape looks even on all sides. Next, I place plates in a quiet pattern, each one centered, each one spaced equally from the next. I set utensils carefully, avoiding any clink. I place cups with handles turned the same direction. Uniformity looks calm. When the serving items arrive, I carry them in small trips rather than one large load. One bowl at a time, one basket at a time. Many small trips are quieter than one strained trip. I set each item down softly and step back to check alignment. When the setting is complete, I stand aside and keep my posture relaxed. I do not hover. Hovering invites nervousness. I let the room take the shape of readiness. Later, when I am permitted to eat, my portion is simple. Plain bread, a small bowl, water. I sit and eat slowly, taking small bites and chewing fully. I do not eat while thinking hard. Thinking hard wakes the mind. Instead, I let the taste be ordinary, and ordinary taste encourages ordinary calm. Between bites, I set my hands down and breathe quietly. I notice the weight of my shoulders, the position of my feet, the simple fact of being seated. This is not a grand moment. It is a quiet interval in a long day. When I finish, I wipe my hands, fold the cloth once, and return everything to its proper place. I do not leave crumbs scattered. Crumbs invite insects. Insects invite fuss. I keep the process simple. Before rising, I take one slow sip of water and let the swallow feel like a small reset. Then I stand, align my chair, and step away. When the meal setting is no longer needed, I clear it in reverse order, so nothing is forgotten. Cups first, then utensils, then plates, then the cloth. Reversing the sequence feels like gently untying a ribbon, rather than pulling it. I carry dishes to the wash area in controlled trips. I rinse each bowl and wipe the rim dry. I set items on the rack with space between them so they do not knock together. Even clean objects can be noisy when they are crowded. As I work, I keep my breath low and even. I let the shoulders remain heavy rather than lifted. The goal is to let digestion and calm happen at the same time, as if the body is settling in layers. Before I leave the area, I check the floor for stray drops of water or crumbs. I wipe what needs wiping and leave the ground dry and safe. Dry floors keep steps quiet, and quiet steps keep the evening gentle. The afternoon continues. After a meal, the palace often turns toward maintenance. Lamps, surfaces, small items that must be checked before evening. My next duty will be to walk the rooms with quiet eyes, preparing the spaces to feel settled as the light begins to soften. After the meal routine, the palace enters a working hush. It is not silence exactly. It is movement without commotion. This is the hour for finishing touches, tasks that keep rooms calm even when no one is sitting in them. I begin with lamps. Light is managed here, not celebrated. I check each wick carefully. If a wick is too long, it smokes. If it is too short, it struggles. I trim with small cuts and set the trimmed pieces aside. Then I wipe the glass with a soft cloth, using gentle circles, stopping before the glass squeaks. I check oil levels and close caps firmly but without forcing. A cap that is loose invites spills. Spills invite sharp cleaning. Sharp cleaning invites noise. I prefer prevention. Next, I move through a sitting room and correct small angles. A cushion leans too far. I straighten it. A chair is turned slightly. I align it. A low table sits a finger's width off the rug line. I slide it back so edges run parallel. These are quiet geometry problems solved with fingertips. Dusting comes after alignment. I place the cloth flat and draw it toward me in a single smooth motion, then fold the cloth to trap what it collects. Flicking spreads dust into the air. Smooth pulling keeps it low. Low dust keeps the room gentler to breathe. I check pathways. A curled corner of a mat can catch a foot. A stray thread can snag a hem. I press mat edges flat with my palm, remove loose threads, and clear small objects left behind. Clear paths reduce suddenness, and suddenness is the one thing I try to keep out of the day. In one passage, I replace a small lantern hook and test it with a careful tug. Not hard, only enough to feel that it holds. Then I step back and look at the lantern from the side to ensure it hangs straight. Straight objects look calm. Crooked objects seem uneasy. I refill a water vessel meant for evening use. I pour slowly, keeping the mouth close to the vessel, and wipe the rim dry. Then I place the vessel where it can be reached easily later, handle facing outward. When the round is complete, I write a compact note. Wicks checked, glass wiped, surfaces dusted, cushions aligned, pathways cleared, water vessel refilled. The note is practical closure. I take a soft broom and sweep in long, slow strokes, drawing dust toward me instead of pushing it away. Pushing makes dust rise. Pulling keeps it low. When the dust gathers, I lift it with a cloth and remove it without shaking. In one corner, I find a tiny scuff on the floor from a moved chair. I rub it lightly with a damp cloth until it fades, then dry the spot so no moisture remains. Moist floors make footsteps louder. Dry floors keep the room quiet. Near a rug edge, I notice a slight shift in the weave where many feet have passed. I do not attempt a complicated fix now. Instead, I brush the fibers in one direction so the edge lies flatter, and note it for a later, proper adjustment. I also check the corners of the room where dust likes to hide. Corners are patient collectors. I wipe them slowly, then fold the cloth and set it aside for washing, because a used cloth should not be returned to the clean stack. Keeping clean things clean is a simple rule that preserves calm. The light outside is beginning to soften. Soon, the palace will shift from afternoon work to evening preparation. Before that happens, I have another quiet duty. A short time in the records corner, where paper and straight lines must be kept as calm as cloth and lamps. Part 11. The records. Corner, lists, shelves, and calm paper. The records corner is modest, more a disciplined workspace than a grand library. Paper can create trouble when it becomes scattered, so my task is to prevent scattering before it starts. I enter, close the door gently, and let the room's stillness settle around me. I begin with the table. A few loose sheets lie near the edge. I gather them into one stack, tap the stack lightly until the corners meet, and set it centered. Then I place a clean cloth beside it for dust control. On the shelf, books sit in a mostly neat row. I do not open them. Reading invites alertness, and this hour asks for softness. Instead, I correct outer details. I push one spine forward so it sits flush, rotate another so it stands upright, and even the spacing so no gap looks accidental. A catalog list waits in a narrow slot. I take it out and confirm titles and positions with slow attention. I point to a book, then mark a small check beside its entry. The checks are plain. Plain marks keep the mind plain. When I find a volume that belongs elsewhere, I carry it with both hands, close to my body, and place it in its proper section. I note the move in simple words. No judgment, only location. Next, I check paper slots. Each slot holds a type: schedules, delivery notes, message slips, and small inventories. I make sure nothing sticks out where it might catch air when someone walks past. A protruding edge flutters. Fluttering feels like nervousness in a quiet room. I tuck papers in so they sit evenly. I dust the shelf surfaces with a slow, flat motion and fold the cloth as I go, trapping dust rather than spreading it. Then I check drawers, pens aligned, spare paper squared, ribbon wound neatly, wax stored safely. When something is crooked, I straighten it rather than reshuffling everything. To finish, I tie a small bundle of loose notes with a ribbon, leaving a short tail that makes it easy to open later. Easy opening prevents impatience. Impatience is loud even when it is silent. I return the catalog list to its slot and close each drawer with my palm, guiding it shut so it does not knock. Then I write a brief record. Shelves aligned, papers squared, catalog confirmed, drawers ordered. To keep the records corner ready for tomorrow, I prepare a small set of fresh supplies. I square a stack of blank paper, tap it into line, and place it where the edge is easy to reach. I refill a small ink pot, then wipe the outside so no sticky rim remains. I also check the pencil points and sharpen one gently, collecting the shavings so they do not scatter. Scattered shavings look messy and can be tracked into corridors. Keeping the mess contained keeps the palace calmer overall. I check the humidity of the paper by touching the corner lightly. Paper that feels too damp can curl. Curling pages make filing difficult and can create a sense of disorder. If a stack feels soft with moisture, I separate the top sheets slightly so air can move. Then I leave them to settle flat again. On a small shelf, ribbon spools sit in rows. I make sure each spool's loose end is tucked so it will not unwind. Unwound ribbon looks messy and can tangle with other supplies. I tuck the ends, rotate the spools so their edges align, and close the shelf door quietly. Finally, I place a clean weight, just a small flat object, on top of the blank paper stack, so the corners stay down and crisp. Crisp corners feel like calm decisions already made. After paperwork, my eyes feel ready for a different kind of comfort, warm water and simple care. The next part of my day is a short visit to the washroom, where I can reset my body without waking my mind. The washroom holds warmth like a secret. Compared to the corridors, the air here is soft, damp, and calm. The tools are simple: basins, cloths, small bottles, and a bench where a person can sit without being hurried. I begin by preparing water carefully. I pour into the basin in a thin stream, close to the surface, so the sound stays quiet. I test the warmth with my fingertips and wait a moment for the water to settle, neither too hot nor too cool. I wash my hands first, fingers, palms, wrists, using slow circles. Then I rinse and press them dry, folding the cloth so I always use a clean section. Pressing feels more restful than rubbing. For my face, I wet a cloth and press it gently from the center outward. Forehead, cheeks, chin. I let the warmth release tension without making me sleepy too early. Then I rinse with cooler water, just enough to feel refreshed. On a small shelf, rose water sits in a plain bottle. I do not treat it as a luxury. I treat it as a quiet step. I pour a little into my palm, rub my hands together once, and press the rose water lightly onto my face. The scent is faint and clean, not demanding. I loosen my braid and comb my hair slowly. When the comb meets resistance, I stop and work the knot free with patient fingers. I braid again, loosely, keeping the pull gentle so the scalp remains comfortable. For a few minutes, I soak my feet in warm water. I lower one foot then the other slowly, avoiding any splash. The warmth relaxes the arches and softens the feeling of standing all day. When I'm finished, I pat my feet dry carefully, paying attention to the heel and toes, because comfort at night begins with details. I fold the drying cloth into a neat square and hang it so it will air evenly. A cloth left bunched stays damp. A cloth spread properly dries without complaint. Before leaving, I tidy the washroom as I found it. I rinse the basin, wipe the rim, close the bottles, and align them with labels facing outward. Searching is unnecessary when everything sits ready. In my notebook, I write, water warmed, hands washed, face refreshed, hair smoothed, feet rested, tools returned. The entry is small, but it marks a reset. Before leaving, I take a moment to calm the breath the way the washroom seems to teach it. I inhale without lifting the shoulders and exhale as if letting a ribbon fall from my hands. The slower exhale reduces the urge to hurry. I rub a tiny amount of plain oil into my hands, focusing on the knuckles and fingertips. Work dries the skin. Dry skin catches on cloth, and catching can make abrupt movements. Soft hands support soft work. I wash one additional cloth and hang it beside the first, spacing them so air can pass. When cloths touch, they dry slowly and can smell stale. Space is a simple solution. While the water drains, I rinse the basin again and wipe the underside of the rim where droplets can hide. Hidden droplets fall later and surprise the feet. I dry the floor near the basin too, leaving no damp patches. Before I go, I relax the hands one more time. I spread the fingers wide, then bring them together slowly, as if closing a fan. I repeat once, then let the hands rest, warm and ready for quieter evening work. Now, with my body quieter, the afternoon can continue without friction. The next hour is gentle and slow, moving near the courtyard where the air changes and where I can let my mind drift through safe, ordinary observations. I step into a corridor that runs near the courtyard, and the air changes immediately. It is cooler, fresher, carrying a faint scent of water and leaves. The courtyard is not a place for me to linger in a way that draws attention, but passing near it is enough to soften the mind. I walk along the outer edge of the corridor, keeping my steps even. Afternoon light pours through arches and lands on the floor in long shapes. I let my eyes rest on these shapes without making a story from them. Seeing without storytelling keeps the mind calm. A small fountain sound reaches me, distant and steady. I do not chase it. I let it sit behind my thoughts like a background hum. The palace has many sounds, but the safest ones are the slow, continuous ones. I'm carrying a small bundle today, folded cloths that will be placed in a storage room for evening use. The bundle is light, but I still hold it close, keeping its edges aligned. If something is aligned, it feels settled. If it is skewed, it feels restless. When I reach the storage room, I place the bundle down and smooth the top once. Then I step back, check that the stack sits square, and leave. The work is quiet, but quiet work still creates a sense of completion. On the return walk, I take a short moment beside a window. I inhale slowly through my nose, then exhale longer, letting the exhale release tension from the shoulders. The body responds to the air around it. Cooler air encourages slower breath. To keep the mind from becoming busy, I choose a simple counting task. I count archways, then count steps between two doorways, then count the number of tiles in a row. These are small counts that keep the brain occupied without waking it. A servant passes, and I step aside smoothly. I do not freeze, I do not hurry. I simply shift to the edge, let them pass, and return to my pace. Smooth movement prevents the feeling of interruption. As the afternoon light begins to lean toward evening, the palace turns toward preparation for night. Night preparation is made of small supplies, clean cloths, water vessels, and simple arrangements that allow people to rest without seeking anything in a hurry. Near the courtyard, I pass a set of potted plants arranged in tidy lines. I do not touch them, but I notice how each pot sits evenly, how the soil looks smooth at the top. Simple arrangements like this remind me that calm is often just repetition done well. I take another slow breath and practice an internal inventory of my senses, keeping it plain. Cool air on the skin, distant water sound, warm light on the floor, fabric weight in my arms. I do not label any of it as good or bad. I only notice it, then let it go. At one point, I pause beside a stone column and rest my fingertips against it for a moment. The stone is cool and steady. I remove my hand and continue, taking care not to startle myself into faster movement. When I return to the inner corridor, I let the palace air replace the courtyard air slowly, as if I am closing a window in the mind. The shift helps me prepare for indoor tasks again. My next duty will be to prepare those night supplies, quietly and thoroughly, so the evening can unfold without any sharpness. Evening preparation begins with objects that seem small, but make the night easier. When night arrives, no one wants to search for a towel, a cup, or a clean cloth. Searching creates movement. Movement creates sound. Sound invites wakefulness. My job is to keep the night gentle by making readiness simple. I collect clean towels first. I do not carry a towering stack. I take a few at a time, fold them again to tighten the shape, and place them into a basket with edges aligned. Towels look calm when their corners match. Next, I prepare water vessels. I rinse them first, then fill them in controlled streams. I keep each vessel close to the basin so the water does not splash. When a vessel is filled, I wipe the rim and the handle, because a wet handle encourages slipping. Slipping creates suddenness. Suddenness is what I avoid. I place each vessel on its assigned shelf, with the handle facing outward. Outward handles make lifting easy. Easy lifting prevents clatter. Then, I prepare a simple night tray for a quiet room. A covered cup, a clean cloth, and a small dish kept plain. The tray is not indulgence, it is comfort. I line the tray with a cloth, set each item down softly, and check alignment. Centered items feel restful. I also check spare cloths for small accidents. A folded rag for spills, a dry cloth for wiping, a small towel for hands. I place these supplies where they can be reached quickly, so if a spill happens, it can be solved quietly. In the corridor, I confirm that the pathway is clear. A basket placed in the wrong spot can become a hazard. I slide the basket back into line, leaving the walkway clean and wide. Clean walkways support calm steps. When everything is arranged, I record it in my notebook. Towels prepared, water vessels filled, night tray set, spare cloths placed, path cleared. Lists make me feel finished, and feeling finished is part of resting. I also prepare clean bed linens that may be needed later. Linens for night are folded tighter than linens for display. Tight folds keep them compact and easy to carry without dragging. I fold each piece in halves, then thirds, then once more, keeping edges aligned. For each stack, I place a small tie around it, not tight enough to crease, only firm enough to prevent slipping. I set stacks in the basket in a single direction, so the top faces the same way. Uniform direction makes quick selection possible without sorting. I check for small nighttime tools, a clean cloth for wiping lamp glass, a spare match container stored safely, and a plain container for used wick trimmings. I position these items so they can be reached without rummaging. Rummaging wakes the hands, and wakeful hands wake the mind. Sometimes night supplies must be prepared for more than one space. I assemble a second, smaller tray with only the essentials: a covered cup, a cloth, and a spare towel folded compactly. The smaller tray is easier to carry without strain, and strain is what makes footsteps heavy. I check that cup covers sit properly so no dust settles during the night. I also confirm that any small container is sealed, because open containers invite searching and unnecessary movement later. Before finishing, I wash my hands briefly, dry them, and handle the folded linens with clean palms. Clean hands keep linens fresh. Fresh linens support restful sleep. In my notebook, I add a clear placement note. Which shelf holds the spare towels, which corner holds the spill cloths, and which room received the night tray. Clarity now prevents noise later. There is one more practical task before the evening service begins. During afternoon rounds, I noticed a cushioned seam that felt loose beneath my fingertips. It is small, but small problems grow larger when ignored. Before the lamps are lit, I will return to the textile room and repair it, letting the needle quiet my thoughts one more time. I return to the textile room with the cushion cover folded under my arm. The room is dimmer now, afternoon light turning warm and low. The quiet here feels deeper, as if the walls have absorbed hours of soft work. I lay the cushion cover on the table and find the weak seam. It is not torn, only loosened, a line of stitches that has begun to give way. Problems like this are easy to fix when they are still small. I choose a thread that matches the fabric and cut a length that feels manageable. Long thread tangles. Short thread ends too quickly. I aim for a middle length that keeps the work smooth. Threading the needle again feels familiar. I trim the end clean, guide it through the eye, and pull a short tail. Then I tie a small knot and press the knot between my fingers to flatten it. Before stitching, I align the seam edges and hold them steady. I begin with a few securing stitches at the start, then work forward in tiny, even passes. The needle moves quietly, the thread follows, and the seam becomes stable again. To keep the rhythm soothing, I count in silent sets of 7. 7 stitches, pause. 7 more, pause. The number is arbitrary, but it keeps my hands consistent. When I reach the end, I secure the thread twice on the underside and trim the tail neatly. I run a fingertip along the seam to confirm it lies flat and holds. Flat seams feel calm. I fold the cushion cover and return it to its place, smoothing it once as I set it down. The cushion looks unchanged, and that is the goal. Good repair disappears into the object. I put my needle away carefully, not leaving it on the table where it could be forgotten. Forgetting sharp objects creates panic later, and panic is the opposite of what this palace demands. In my notebook, I write, seam reinforced, cover returned, tools stored. The entry is brief, but it allows my mind to release the task. After the seam is secured, I turn the cover inside out briefly to confirm the knot sits flat and will not rub. I press the seam line with my fingers, then turn it right side out again. The fabric falls smoothly and the repair disappears into the object. I gather the remaining thread end and wind it back onto its card so no loose tail hangs. Loose tails catch on other threads and create tangles. I close the needle case and place it exactly where it belongs, then wipe the table surface once more so no tiny fiber remains. Before leaving the room, I take a short moment to stretch my fingers. I open the hand, close it gently, and rotate the wrist slowly. Needlework is quiet, but it still asks a lot from small joints, and small joints deserve calm care. Now the day moves into evening service. The corridors will be quieter soon and people will expect trays and lamps. My next duty is to prepare a final service tray with the same steady care I used before dawn. Slow steps, soft hands, and calm arrangement. Evening service is like morning service, but softer. The day has already spent its energy, and the palace moves as if it wants to become still. I return to the service room and begin the tray routine again, using the same sequence so my body does not need to invent anything new. I line the tray with a clean cloth and press the corners flat. I choose cups and check their rims with my thumb. I warm them briefly, dry them, and set them down in a neat row. Spoons follow, placed without clink. A small dish, a folded napkin, and a spare cloth for safety. The water warms quietly. I pour slowly and stop at an even level. Steam rises and disappears. I stir only once. Then I step back and look for symmetry. Centered dishes, aligned handles, cloth lying flat. I lift the tray with both hands and walk the route at a measured pace. Evening corridors feel different. They hold less motion and the air is cooled. I keep my breath low and steady, matching steps to exhale, allowing the shoulders to remain loose. At each doorway, I pause and listen before entering. I knock softly and wait. Waiting keeps the nervous system calm. When permitted, I enter without suddenness and place the tray down gently as if the table is fragile. I set each item in place in the same order every time. Order reduces decision. Reduced decision reduces mental noise. When the arrangement is complete, I step back and hold still for a moment, letting the room accept the quiet offering of cups and cloth. I leave with the empty tray and return it to the service room. I wash what needs washing, dry what needs drying, and fold the tray cloth into a neat square. Then everything returns to its shelf. In my notebook, evening service completed. Tray returned, cloth folded, shelves aligned. The line looks like a closing bracket to a long day. Evening service includes quiet cleanliness afterward. Once the cups are removed, I return to the table and wipe any faint moisturing before it dries. Dry marks can become stubborn, and stubborn marks invite strong scrubbing. I prefer one gentle wipe now to avoid a louder effort later. Back in the service room, I rinse the cups with warm water and dry them in the same order I used earlier. Order prevents forgotten items. Forgotten items create extra trips. Extra trips create unnecessary motion. I also reset the kettle area. Lid aligned, cloth folded, spoon returned, shelf edges squared. The service room should look ready for morning before I leave it, because morning becomes calmer when it begins in calm surroundings. On the route, I practice an even turning radius at corners, not cutting too sharply. Sharp corners can tip the tray. I widen my turn slightly and let the movement stay smooth, like a slow arc. If I meet another worker in the corridor, I pause at the wall and let them pass, holding the tray steady without tightening my grip. Waiting without tension is a skill. It keeps the heart calm and prevents the hands from trembling. After the final return, I rinse the tray cloth and hang it so it dries without creasing. Creases look like unfinished work. A clean, drying cloth looks like readiness. Now, as dusk approaches, the palace begins its lighting and safety checks. Lamps must be lit and positioned carefully. Curtains must be set. Pathways must remain clear. My next rounds will be about preparing the spaces for night so that nothing surprises anyone in the dark. As dusk gathers, the palace changes tone. Sounds soften. Steps slow. Light becomes a task rather than a background. I begin the dusk round with a small lamp, checking once more that the wick is correct and the glass is clean. I light the lamp carefully and watch the flame settle. I do not stare long. Staring invites thoughts. I treat the flame as a tool, confirm it is steady, and move on. I place the lamp on a stable surface, away from any hanging cloth. Curtains require gentle attention. If a curtain hangs unevenly, it looks restless. I adjust the edge so both sides fall at the same length. I smooth fabric with my palms, flattening any twists that might catch a breeze. I check that lamps are not too close to cushions or folded textiles. Heat and cloth do not always cooperate. When something sits too near, I shift it back by a few fingers' width. A small distance can prevent a large problem. Pathways are checked again, this time with night in mind. In dim light, even a small object can become a hazard. I remove anything that does not belong in the corridor. A stray basket, a loose cloth, a small stool left out. I return each item to its place. I also confirm water vessels are in their correct spots. Night is calmer when water can be reached without searching. Handles face outward. Cloths are folded nearby. The arrangement looks simple and ready. At the end of the round, I pause near a window and notice the last of the daylight fading. I do not build a story around it. I let it be a gentle shift, like the final page of a chapter turning quietly. In my notebook, I write, lamps lit and positioned, curtains set, distances checked, pathways cleared, vessels confirmed. The list feels like a soft lock on the day. As the lamps are set, I pay attention to airflow. A curtain that moves too close to a flame becomes a risk. I adjust the curtain tie so fabric stays gathered and still. If a draft is present, I shift the lamp slightly so the flame remains steady. I check a small corner where textiles are stored and confirm that nothing is piled in a way that could slump outward. Slumping piles create messy edges. Messy edges invite late corrections. Late corrections can interrupt rest. Before leaving each room, I perform a simple 3-point check. Light stable, path clear, cloth away from heat. I do the check quietly in my head. The check becomes a habit, and habits make the night safer without making it louder. In one room, I watch for smoke for a few breaths after lighting the lamp. Smoke means the wick needs adjustment. If I see it, I pinch the wick slightly with a tool and reseat it so the flame becomes cleaner. I place a snuffer nearby in the same position in each room so anyone can extinguish a flame safely without searching. Safety tools are most useful when they are predictable. Before leaving, I listen for any unusual sound. A loose window latch, a tapping cord, a shifting hook. If I hear something small, I correct it now while the palace is still awake. Fixing a small sound prevents a larger disturbance later. Night has arrived in the palace. Now the work becomes smaller, quieter, and more personal. There will be a final check through familiar spaces, and then I will return to my own room to close the day with a calm record and a slow descent into sleep. Night rounds are the smallest rounds because most work is already done. Small rounds are my favorite. They feel like smoothing the last crease before sleep. I walk the corridor slowly, pausing at familiar thresholds. I do not lock what is not mine to lock. I simply confirm that doors sit correctly in their frames, that latches are not half caught, and that nothing is left in a way that invites late-night searching. In a sitting room, a cushion has shifted. I straighten it and smooth the cover with one gentle pass. A folded cloth has slipped toward the table edge. I refold it and place it centered again. These are tiny corrections, but tiny corrections prevent future fuss. I check a lamp and find the flame slightly low. I adjust it until it burns steady and quiet. Then I step back and make sure the lamp's light falls where it should. Not glaring, not too dim. Even light feels calmer than patchy light. In a passage near storage, I confirm that baskets are tucked in and that the walkway is clear. Night steps should be simple. Simple steps allow minds to rest. I pass a water vessel and wipe a small bead of moisture from its side. Moisture can make surfaces slippery. I dry the handle too, then return the cloth to its hook and align the hook's strap so it does not dangle. At each turn, I keep my shoulders relaxed and my gaze soft. If I feel the mind rising, I return it to a practical detail. The line of the floor, the sound of my breath, the steadiness of my pace. Practical details are safe anchors. When the final corridor is checked, I pause outside my own room and listen. The palace sounds are fewer now. Distant steps, a softened murmur, then quiet again. I open my door close to the hinge and step inside. During night rounds, I also confirm that small storage doors are fully closed. A door left ajar looks like an unfinished thought. I guide each door into its frame with my palm until it rests properly, and I make sure nothing pinches in the hinge. I check the edge of a window covering and adjust it so it seals out a draft. Drafts make fabrics flutter, and fluttering can wake light sleepers. A still curtain feels like a quiet promise. In one room, I pick up a small item left on the floor, something harmless but misplaced, and return it to a shelf. Returning misplaced objects is a way of returning the mind to order too. Each correction is a gentle reminder that nothing is urgent and everything can be handled calmly. Near the service area, I confirm that the tray cloths are folded and stored, not left loose where they might fall to the floor. A cloth on the floor is an invitation for a stumble. I refold one cloth that looks slightly uneven and return it to the stack. I also check a small stool positioned near a doorway and slide it back so it sits flush with the wall. The corridor should look empty even when it is prepared, because an empty-looking corridor feels easier to walk through at night. The night rounds are complete. The palace is settled. Now the remaining tasks belong to me alone. A private closing routine, a short diary entry, and a gentle preparation for sleep. In my room, the light is low. Low light makes the day feel finished. I begin the private routine the way I begin many tasks, by clearing surfaces until they look calm. I pick up any small object left out, a thread scrap, a cup, a folded cloth, and return it to its proper place. I straighten the tablecloth with one slow pull. I align the notebook and set the pencil beside it. A simple arrangement tells the mind that nothing is unfinished. I wash my hands again using cool water. The coolness signals the end of work. I dry my hands carefully, pressing the cloth to each finger and folding the cloth afterward so it stays neat. I loosen my braid, comb my hair once, and retie it gently so it will not tug when I lie down. I place the comb back in its exact position. Exact positions remove the need for future searching, and search is a kind of noise. Now I open my notebook for the final entry. I write the date in a small, clear hand. Then I record the day in plain lines, without emotion, without drama, only completion. Morning service completed, lessons practiced, errands delivered, pantry confirmed, mending finished, supplies prepared, lamps checked, night rounds done. Below the list, I write a brief plan for tomorrow, no longer than a few words. Tray, writing, linens, repairs. A short plan is light. A long plan is heavy. I choose lightness. I close the notebook and place it flat on the table. Closing it feels like closing the day itself. Then I prepare the bed. I smooth the sheet, press the pillow, and fold the cover so it lies without pulling. Before lying down, I sit on the edge of the bed and take one slow inhale and a longer exhale. The longer exhale softens the ribs and the shoulders. I let my hands rest in my lap without gripping. Before I lie down, I stretch gently. I lift my shoulders toward my ears and let them drop. I roll my neck slowly in a small circle and stop when it feels comfortable. I flex my feet once under the cover and then let them rest. I check the room's quiet one last time. No dangling cloth near the lamp. No objects at the edge of the table. No sharp corners exposed by clutter. The space feels simple, and simplicity helps the mind stop scanning. I place the pencil inside the notebook rather than beside it. This small action signals that writing is finished. Finished tasks do not need guarding. The notebook can rest, and so can I. I choose tomorrow's simple garment and fold it so it will be easy to put on without fuss in the morning. I place it on a chair with the fold facing outward. This way I will not need to shake it open, and I can begin the next day quietly. Then I adjust the pillow once more, patting it lightly until it feels even. An even pillow prevents small discomforts, and small discomforts can keep the mind awake. The room is ready. The notebook is closed. The day has been placed back on its shelves, like objects returned to their positions. Now there is only one last part of the routine, the part that turns wakefulness into rest. Settle into sleep. Now the day releases its final hold and rest arrives in small steps, the same way the day was built, quietly, patiently, without hurry. I lie down and adjust the cover so it rests without tugging. I turn onto my side and let my hands settle in a comfortable position. If thoughts appear, I do not chase them. I let them pass like distant movement behind a closed door. To invite sleep, I begin a slow body scan. I soften the toes and the soles of the feet. I relax the ankles and calves, letting them feel heavy on the bed. I release the knees and thighs. I let the hips settle, then the lower back, as if each area is setting down a small burden. I loosen the shoulders and let them fall away from the ears. I relax the arms. I let the hands become still, fingers curling naturally, not forced open, not clenched. I soften the neck and jaw. I smooth the forehead. I allow the eyelids to become heavy without effort. If the mind tries to plan, I return it to a quiet image of order. I imagine a shelf with open space, and I place one object down at a time. A cup returned to its place, a folded cloth set in line, a pencil laid beside a closed notebook. Each placed object clears a little more space until the shelf looks simple and complete. Then I follow a descending breath pattern. I inhale gently for 4 counts and exhale for 4. I inhale for 3 and exhale for 3. I inhale for 2 and exhale for 2. The shorter counts feel like stepping down a calm stair, closer to rest. Before sleep deepens, I soften the chest and ribs. I allow the breath to widen slightly on the inhale and narrow on the exhale, like a calm tide. I do not force deep breathing. I let the body choose a comfortable size for the breath and stay there. If the mind wants to replay the day, I turn the replay into a harmless inventory with no scenes attached. Cup, cloth, quarter, ink, thread, lamp. I say each word silently, pause, and let it dissolve. The words are not stories. They are simple objects that can be put away. If sleep still feels distant, I use a gentle sense fade, keeping it plain. I notice 5 soft things: the cover's weight, the pillow's support, the air on my face, the steadiness of the mattress, the warmth in my hands. Then 4 quiet sounds: my breath, distance settling, silence between sounds, the absence of urgency. Then 3 calm thoughts: finished, safe, resting. Then 2 slow exhales. Then 1 final release. To make the ending even quieter, I imagine the corridor lights dimming one by one, not suddenly but in a slow sequence. First the far end, then the middle, then the nearest. With each dimming, the edges of thought become less distinct, until there is only softness and stillness. The palace beyond my room continues to exist, but it no longer asks anything from me. Corridors remain settled. Lamps burn steadily. Curtains hang evenly. Water vessels wait where they should. Everything that needed doing has been done. Now I let the last thought fade and I allow sleep to arrive. This is where we stop for tonight. Nothing else is needed.